Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Neighbor trespasses on my property and threatens to post a story about me on Reddit. After that, am I the jerk for throwing out my husband's dinner after he went to eat at his mom's house? And after that, Karen makes a fuss over my plane seat, then insists that I pay for her to move. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to trespass on anyone's property. I didn't see any no trespassing signs. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Neighbor trespasses on my property and threatens to post a story about me on Reddit. I'm posting this because I was told I'd end up on Reddit, and my kids told me this is likely what the person meant. So I live in an area that's seeing a lot of new builds. My husband and I have the last large lot on our street, lived here for 20 plus years. Probably 800 people lived here when we bought our house. Now it's over 10,000 people. It's about 1.5 acres. We installed a big play area a few years ago for our nieces, nephews, and eventual grandkids. It's on the opposite side of our lot, pretty far away from the house. There's a path that goes from our second driveway. It's landscaped, and we purchased it from a contractor who is replacing some other park, so I can see how people mistake it as a town park. This happens often that people stop to play, and I usually don't care. But we don't encourage it, as we have 2 giant dogs who will bark at strangers who come in the yard. I put up some blatant signs that say private property and beware of dog. Right now it's still cold here. It's an early Friday morning, and I open the door to let the dogs out. They stay in the yard and ignore anything outside the yard. The dogs start barking, I hear yelling. I run outside. There's a couple and their kid playing on the playground. I call the dogs back and put them in the house. I go over to apologize and let them know it's not a public park. As soon as I get within earshot, the mom starts yelling, "What is wrong with you? We're calling animal control on you. Who lets their dogs just run around a park? Get a fence." I hate confrontation, so I get a bit shaky. I tell her it's not a park, it's my yard. She says, "Get out of here. Get away from us." I point to the signs and tell her again that it's not a park, it's our yard, and they need to leave. She starts going off about how it's illegal to leave a play area open. It isn't. And it's illegal to let your dogs off leash in this neighborhood. It isn't. There are almost no bylaws here yet. I tell them again to just leave and that they weren't allowed to be on our property. My dogs are in the big window barking, and her husband is screaming that I should train my dogs before they hurt someone. They're bred to guard and detain intruders. Historically, we don't train them as guard dogs. This upset me more than anything because I'm an irrational animal lover. I called the police. When they saw I was on the phone with the cops, they started shouting about me being a Karen and started getting in their car. Their poor kid was crying, and the woman said, "Watch what happens when you end up on Reddit and we tell people where you live." So here you go, Reddit. My kids checked and didn't find anything about it here, so I'll post it first, and I hope she does post something. I'm sorry my dog scared them, but the screaming and threatening was so over the top and honestly deranged. My kids want me to end this by asking if I'm the jerk because I'm old and I want people to get off my lawn. Everyone is saying install a fence, but that would cost $15,000. I've just contacted a company about getting a gate for our second driveway. Also, where we live, you can't sue someone if they're trespassing on your private property. Suing people isn't something people can easily do here, and usually it's not for any big settlement. Before you comment about attractive nuisance law, it doesn't exist here. I don't want to say where I am, but it isn't the US or anywhere close. Not the jerk. If it's your property, it's your property. That woman was obnoxious, and it's her fault that her kid was crying. I would install a privacy fence and lock it. OP. I would love to install a fence, but it would cost upwards of $15,000. I think after this, we'll at least get a gate for the second driveway. It doesn't have to be a pretty fence. You could do the equivalent of a deer fence for a couple of hundred. A bunch of metal fencing poles you simply hammer into the ground, and a roll of wire garden or deer fencing you unroll and tie to the metal poles. Then you can put signs on the fencing. Private property, not a public park. Am I the jerk for throwing out my husband's dinner after he went to eat at his mom's house? My mother-in-law calls every night to ask what we're having for dinner. Then she brags about what she's cooking to make me look bad, especially if we're getting takeout. I used to care, but not anymore. But my husband would ask me to make dinner only for him to go eat the dinner his mom makes at her home, which is 10 minutes away, and using the "That's my favorite meal" excuse. Yesterday, I wanted to surprise him by cooking one of his favorite meals, and although I was busy, I took time off work to cook. I even went grocery shopping to get what I needed. Later, as I was setting the table, his mom called. I told him he didn't have to answer, but he did. Like usual, she asked what we were having, but acted surprised that I cooked this meal. She then went on to tell him that she cooked X meal and told him to come over. He said okay, which shocked me. I said, "Seriously?" as he started dressing up, getting ready to leave. He told me, no offense, but this meal that his mom cooked was even more of a favorite one than the one I cooked, and grabbed his keys and he left. I felt awful. I took his plate and threw it out, then ate my portion. As I was about to put the plate in the dishwasher, he got home looking angry, saying his mom lied about cooking that favorite meal and used it as an excuse to force him to eat dinner with her. I was shocked, but he sat down telling me to go ahead and reheat dinner. I told him no dinner after he abandoned it. I threw it out. He said, "What?" And I told him he disrespected my time and effort and chose to go eat with his mom instead. He began yelling at me, asking if I really did that, then called me petty and horrible, then went upstairs saying what I did was 100 times worse than what his mom did. I definitely feel like I let my anger and frustration get the best of me, but it really felt unbearable having to live like this for so long. By the way, I'm 26 and he's 28. ETA, to make one thing clear, and that's the fact that my husband only does this when it comes to food. He lived with his mom, attended community college, and loved and still loves her food and is used to it. She gave me recipes to make, and I try to do that, but he keeps switching homes just to eat what he feels like. Not the jerk. Why in the world is he telling you to go eat dinner? Did a T-Rex attack him and eat his arms on the way back from his mom's? Did he try to catch a piano falling from the sky, which broke his fingers? Did he anger a forest fairy and she cursed him and now he has 2 sets of legs instead of hands? Or is that him waving a huge red flag? These are all good theories, but have you considered that her husband may actually be a stray cat enchanted to appear human? That would explain why he wanders from house to house asking to be fed and then picks and chooses from what's offered. Not the jerk. Your husband can either commit to eating at home with you, tell you well before dinner that he's eating with his mom, or he can make his own meals. Until he starts regularly making a choice to be home or go with enough time for you to plan and prep your cooking, cook enough for only you. He's on his own. ETA. I wasn't going to say because I feel it's obvious, but I can't help myself. This is much larger of an issue than dinner time. There's a profound lack of respect in your relationship. Husband needs to snip the apron strings at the very least, but really needs to spend some serious time thinking about what a marriage and partnership actually means. Not the jerk, stop cooking for him. Tell him how you felt when you made the effort to prepare a nice meal and he decided to eat at mom's. If he continues to do it, you won't cool. I also suggest a compromise. Pick 2 nights a week that he eats with his mom. If she calls on other nights at the last minute, he can gracefully decline. "Sorry, my wife has dinner taken care of. I'll see you on Thursday." If she particularly wants to have him there for a certain holiday or anniversary, she should ask well before that day arrives. You should consider asking her doctor to evaluate her for dementia because her behavior is weird. My aunt passed of Alzheimer's last week, but she did something similar. She would call and lie to get attention. "I haven't seen anyone all day. There's no food in the house." None of this was true. She lived in a mobile home next to her daughter. Her 16-year-old grandkid stayed over every night in case she needed assistance at night. The family brought her food regularly. She had meals on wheels for lunch, and her daughter made breakfast every morning and sent dinner. She was surrounded by people who cared about her, but if she was left alone for 10 minutes, she whipped out her phone and started making these crisis calls. By the time we arrived, she forgot she had called. Your mother-in-law should be evaluated for a neurological or mental illness. Her behavior may not be able to be changed, but there are treatments available. Karen makes a fuss over my plane seat, then insists that I pay for her to move. So this happened back in January of 2018, so my memory may be a bit fuzzy. So I'm a 23-year-old man who usually visits my parents and siblings for Christmas and New Year's because that's the only time I can see them. So I'm in the airport waiting to board my flight as I see a woman getting angry because her kids were tired and wanted to get on the plane. I think nothing of it and hope she's not sat near me. Note, she was at my gate. As I was approaching my seat, an aisle seat in business class because I knew it would be smarter than asking people to stand up so I can get to the bathroom. When I get to my seat, I see one mother and 2 kids, one in my seat. I tell the mother that's my seat. She's visibly upset at that statement and snaps back. "No, it's not, jerk." Me, not wanting to have a fight on the plane, I grab the attention of the flight attendant and I show her my boarding pass, so the flight attendant asks her to move from my seat politely. And being asked to move set off the Karen in a raised voice. "This is my seat. I paid for it, so buzz off." The flight attendant, still being polite, asks to see the boarding passes to check the seats. The entitled mother pulls 2 out for the seats next to mine. The flight attendant, slightly less kind, says, "Ma'am, these are only 2 boarding passes. Where's the 3rd one?" The mother, thinking she's smart, says, "I must have dropped the 3rd one, so I can't give it to you." So this causes me to butt into the conversation and say that I have the boarding pass for that seat because it's my seat. You should have seen the look on her face, because she then shouts out, "Give me my boarding pass, you jerk!" I'm confused why she's so delusional at this point, because it's obviously my ticket since I bought it. The next part was back and forth arguing, which I can barely remember, but from what I do remember, it was the flight attendant saying that I clearly paid for this seat as it had my name on the boarding pass, and her arguing for a few more minutes before stopping grinning, and she said, "Well, if you want me to move so bad, how about you pay to upgrade me and my kids to 1st class?" I responded by saying, "Miss, I only have a business class seat because I do a trip like this once a year, so I tend to be comfortable during a flight, and I don't have the funds for 3 first-class tickets." The flight attendant then says to the Karen, "Either you or one of your kids will have to move, or else we will have to remove you from the flight." Then, without holding back, she screeches, "If I leave, he's going to hurt them." Me and the flight attendant are physically taken aback by hearing this. After that, I stopped trying to be nice and responded, "Get out of my seat and never make those claims again, you self-centered jerk." The flight attendant tries to calm me down and calls for security. In the end, the Karen and her kids were escorted off the plane, and I got a row to myself. I forgot about it until the other day, so I decided to post it here after getting into listening to these stories on YouTube. Anyways, thanks for reading my story. Am I the jerk for my reasons of no +1s at my wedding, causing several people not to attend? I'm getting married, and like every other bride, I too have certain rules I want for my wedding to go smoothly. One of them is the no +1s rule. Only people named in the invitation are invited. The criteria I have for people who will get to bring their partners are: 1. Both me and my fiance know of your partner and have met them. If I know your partner and my fiance doesn't, that disqualifies them and vice versa. 2. If I'd personally go to dinner with you and your partner. 3. If I'd invite your partner as a separate person anyway and not just because they're your partner. 4. If your partner is also a friend of mine. Those who meet that criteria get to bring their partners. If they don't, then they don't get to bring them. Simple. That also excludes long-term relationships, engaged couples, and married couples as well. We know it might seem harsh, but those are the rules we've decided to set so we can be more comfortable. It has nothing to do with budget or venue capacity, purely our choice. Several people have denied the invitation to our wedding due to these rules. One of them is also my cousin. My cousin has been engaged to this girl for 1 year now, and he was upset we didn't include her. The reason she was excluded was because my fiance hasn't met her, and she's not a person I'd personally be friends with either. I told my cousin how heartbroken I am that he will not come to the wedding due to this, and I expressed my distaste for the fact that he can't be away from his fiance for a few hours to honor me and my fiance. Couples don't have to be together the whole time. Then he basically told me I'm being extremely disrespectful and a huge jerk. I asked him to explain, and he said word for word, "Let me get this clear. You want me to come to honor you to your wedding, honor your love story and all that, but you can't respect me enough to invite my fiance? I can be without my fiance for several hours. Heck, we even spend days apart in vacations with our own separate friend group sometimes. What bothers me is not having to be away from my fiance for a few hours, but the fact that you excluded her for those reasons." I told him those are my rules, take it or leave it. He says he finds my rules extremely disrespectful, but since it's my wedding, he has no say in it. I told him good, and to stop BSing me then, and show his support and respect by attending. He said that while he respects my extremely exclusive and disrespectful rules, I'm a fool to believe that he will care more about valuing my wedding over his fiance. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk for guilt-tripping your cousin and anyone else you try to pull this crap with. Your wedding, your rules, but people are allowed to not attend for not liking your rules. Get over it. Only OP appears to be able to have rules. The cousin's rule is to not attend weddings where he can't bring his fiance, which I find to be totally reasonable. OP doesn't believe others are allowed to be upset with her rules, but she is allowed to be upset with others' rules. Look, for the millionth time, weddings aren't just for the couple. They are community affairs. They're celebrations of marriage and coupling itself, not just this particular marriage. No one should come to a wedding who doesn't support that particular marriage, but also who doesn't support marriage and the kind of family building marriage represents in general. But there's a reverse logic as well. Attendance and invitations must also respect coupling and marriage and the family building created by unrelated people who come together to form a new family, and the family building created by unrelated people who come together to form a new family. If you forefront the particular couple's desire above the institution of coupledom or marriage itself, then why are you having a traditional wedding? You could go in front of a clerk at the city hall instead, or dance under the moon and have a couple's mud bath accompanied by a drum circle. OP wants the benefit of all the traditions without sharing that benefit around, and you can't get without giving. You're the jerk. I'm really confused by this mentality of, it's your wedding, do whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously yes. If you have financial constraints and the like, don't go crazy. No one is expecting you to have insane food, venue, and music, etc. if you can't afford it. But excluding long-term couples, especially those already married, and those of your family members, is really weird. I wasn't invited to a wedding with my partner this spring, and it really hurt. It feels slightly invalidating, but I still sucked it up because it's someone else's wedding. Weddings are really community affairs. You're bringing together your community of people. If you're willing to invite one half because they're in your community, so in this case the cousin, then why are you excluding their other half, who is by extension part of your community? So in this case, the cousin's soon-to-be spouse. Especially with family. If I was cousin's fiance, then post-marriage, this would probably really affect my relationship with OP. It would change how I'd view them. It's so weird to me why people go so far to exclude people. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know. Cancel a land lease and hope to make a windfall? Hope you like a lot of dirt. Let me preface this by noting that this revenge was not my doing, at least not exactly. It happened back in the 90s when I was in high school and centered around the type of school I attended. So in case you weren't aware, it's very common in agricultural communities to have what are known as farmer schools. That's not a technical term, but more just something easy to define them. The schools are generally organized by the local farmers, and while you still study the various courses needed to get into college, you also study farming technology courses and get credit hours for work study, i.e. working on one or more farms. The area I lived in was surrounded by a number of large farms which grew cotton primarily. So during the year, we'd spend time out in the field, both tilling, planting, and harvesting. One of the farms near the school was this 1,000-acre spread that, like the others, grew mostly cotton, though sometimes they rotated to soybeans or silage, basically corn, but you don't harvest it. This farm had a long partnership with the school, so the students provided near-free labor for the farmer. The farmer leased this property from some out-of-state owner and paid them a portion of the revenue from the harvest. Imagine my surprise then, when I and many of my classmates arrived at the farm to do our work study, and the farmers instructed some to crew the sprayers and start spraying herbicide on the fields, while others, myself included, were to take tractors and discs and plow everything under. The farmer wanted every square inch of the fields returned to just dirt. We were shocked, to say the least, but after some discussion, we set to work. It took us the better part of a weekend to do so, and when we were done, the field was in a beautiful, if barren, state. The farmer thanked each of us personally and paid us about $500 each, quite the sum for a 90s high school senior. We returned to the school, told our headmaster that the contract was completed, and he informed us that the farmer would no longer be working with the school, and we'd be sent to one of the other, larger farms for the rest of the year and our work study. It was probably 2 or 3 months later before words started going around about why we had been instructed to destroy the crop. Granted, these were just rumors, but based on how things turned out for the farmer, I suspect there's some truth to it. So apparently, the landowner had decided that he was going to not renew the lease the farmer had on the land. This lease renewal just so happened to fall a few weeks before harvest season would start. Given that the average cotton farm earns about $1,500 per acre, a 1,000-acre farm would easily net the owner $1.5 million, about $500,000 of that being pure profit. I don't know what the farmer's lease was, but it stands to reason that it wasn't anywhere near that. So this landowner had figured out a neat little trick. Let the farmer get a good crop planted and then refuse to renew the lease. The farmer would leave the plants in the field and the landowner would just need to pay some contractors to come harvest it, and they'd earn a profit. Since at the time the farmer's lease wasn't yet up, he decided to prevent that from happening. His act of revenge against the owner was to prevent them from cashing in on their hard work. Sure, it destroyed his farm, and he had to sell off most everything he owned to buy some property for himself, but he had proved a point. The owner did try to sue the farmer, though he, the owner, really didn't have a leg to stand on, or so I was told. I think the court ruled that since the farmer was still under the lease when he had the land tilled under, then it was his property to do with as he wished, and thus the landowner couldn't tell him what to do with his property. I learned a rather valuable lesson from that man, beyond what I learned about farming. That lesson was, never ever cross someone with nothing to lose. Edit. Since it was brought up in the comments, let me add some details here. Cotton is one of the few crops which leave a negative nutrient value in the soil, meaning that after harvest, even if you till the dead plants under, or even if you till them prior to harvest, you won't have as much nutrients as you started with. That's why farmers will plant another crop, usually winter wheat, in place, and then till it under rather than harvesting it. This is something commonly called a green manure, but it works to put nutrients that the cotton pulled out of the soil back into it. While the ground wouldn't have been completely dead or sterile, any crop planted on that tract of land without further treatment of the soil wouldn't have produced the same acre per acre yield that a comparable crop would have had he gone to harvest and planted the secondary crop, which means that the landowner would either have to plant the green manure and spend money that way, or pay by the ton to use artificial fertilizer. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay for my father's medical bills? I'm female, 29. My parents divorced when I was about 10 years old, and I have had no contact with my father after a year because he made the choice to prioritize his new family, stepson, who's 33, and eventually his kids with his new wife over my brother and I. No visitation after he got remarried at all. When we called to ask when he was going to visit us, he would just say that he was busy. Before the divorce, I was literally a daddy's girl, his beloved golden child, no joke. I thought my father was the best, and I wanted to marry a man like him when I grew up. So the fact that he just dropped my brother and me off has caused a deep-seated wound deep in my heart, which I will never ever forgive him for causing. He never paid child support, so my mother had to support my brother and I as a single parent. She decided not to take him to court as she never wanted anything to do with him again. Parents had 50-50 custody. However, 18 years is a long time, and thanks to my mother's love and care for us, I've already forgotten about him and moved on with my life. Same goes for my brother. We have both grown up to live comfortably in our lives, take care of our mother, and love her to no end. The story is that this morning, his stepson, who's 33, contacted me via Facebook and said he wanted to talk to me regarding our father. And I was confused at first, and then remembered that yes, I had someone like that in my life. He told me that our father has a medical condition and treatment cost a lot, sent together with screenshot of his medical reports, and it would be nice if we could pay his bills, and also that my father wanted to speak to my brother and I. I told him that that man lost his right to be my father when he decided not to have any contact with us, and also that his father's medical bills are none of my concern, so as his kids, you shouldn't go around harassing random people for money. Also, all those years of unpaid child support could be used to cover his medical expenses. After which he called me a vengeful and heartless jerk, to which I just replied with a smiling emoji and blocked him. I talked to my mom about this, and she said while I have the right to be angry with him, he is still my father and is unwell, so I could help them out a bit. I told her, no way am I going to pay for his bills. He has kids to pay for it, so let them settle it. He made his bed, now let him sleep in it. Was I the jerk here? Nope, not the jerk at all. Regardless, your father flat out discarded you, and as far as you know, has never made any attempt to see you or talk to you in 18 years. No way. On a separate note, your mother is a bit of a jerk for not pursuing child support. It's not for her, it's for you and your brother. And she wants you to contribute? Nope, she wanted nothing to do with him. Wouldn't even let any of his money go to supporting your upbringing, so you can do the same. Not the jerk. Also, the fact that the dad himself didn't have the courage to contact her first, and how tacky to contact someone out of the blue after more than 18 years and ask for money along with pictures of the bills. That man made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. Entitled Mom Ruins My Most Prized Possession. A small bit of information about me and some backstory. I'm 14 and have autism. I'm an amateur coin and Hot Wheels collector and enjoy collecting Hot Wheels and coins of small/moderate value. I've got exactly 41 coins that I've collected, ranging in price anywhere from $30 to $400. My crown jewel of this collection is my Flying Eagle penny, Flying Eagle cent, which I have in its own separate coin case as opposed to all of the rest which are in a picture frame. This coin is my prized possession. It's valued at around $1,000 to $1,500 US, so on the low end price point because of its condition. The story starts around December of 2020. My auntie and her 3 kids came over to our rather stuffy trailer as they needed somewhere to stay while passing through our city. Now, I don't like anybody being in my room where my stuff is when I can't see them, but I'm more than happy to let them in when I'm in with them. My little cousin, 8, the same one who broke my original NES, to lightly put it, is a jerk. She's never ever had one day where she wasn't treated like royalty. Now, this behavior would be tolerated if she was 2 years old, but she's 8, so I don't put up with it. She knocks on my door asking to come in, and I agree. From now on, I'll call her Entitled Cousin. Entitled Cousin. Hey, OP, can I come in? Me. Yes, thanks for asking. She comes inside the room and sits on my bed, looking at my wall of Hot Wheels. Entitled Cousin. Those are so cool. Where did you get them? Me. Oh, I usually just buy them at the Hot Wheels store. They're pretty cheap. Can I please have one? Now, I'm a generous person and have some Hot Wheels I play with, so I had gave her one. It was a basic Toyota-looking one. But I wanted one of those. Points to the ones in the box on my wall. Me. Sorry, but I don't give those away. She cuts me off. But you aren't playing with them. They're still in the boxes. Me. Yes, but I like them in their boxes. I keep them in their boxes because I like them to be displayed. I want that one. She points to my Stars and Stripes 64 Pontiac GTO. Me. I'm sorry, but I won't give it away. Now please leave my room. I start nudging her out of my room before closing the door. It was relatively late, around 9:50 p.m. when they arrived, and they had inflated the blow-up mattress we had for them to sleep on, as they would be leaving the next day, so I decided to go to bed, as I had an online class tomorrow at 9 a.m. Cue the next day. I wake up around 7 minutes before my class starts and rush to my laptop, being around 2 minutes late for the class. They usually last an hour or two. 30 minutes of the teacher talking, and another 30 or an hour of work. Everyone in the house was awake at this time. The class period had ended, so I was working on the stuff for the last few days. My mom had told me she was going out with 2 of the 3 kids and that Entitled Aunt would be here because she didn't want to go, and neither did Entitled Cousin. I was fine with this. Another hour goes by, and then Entitled Cousin goes into my room. Me. Hey, Entitled Cousin. Entitled Cousin, looking at my coins. Wow, that's a lot of money. Now, I'm happy whenever anyone shows interest in my coin collection. Me. Oh, yeah, I collect coins just like my Hot Wheels. Just like the Hot Wheels, look with your eyes, please. Boss music. Entitled Aunt walks in. Oh, why can't she hold them? Me. They're in a picture frame. Entitled Aunt walks close enough to see all of the coins. Well, this one isn't, she said while picking up the Flying Eagle penny. It was in the case. I instantly go on edge. Me. Oh yeah, but I don't like people touching it. Entitled Cousin. Mommy, can I see it? She holds her arms out like a little toddler. Me. Slightly panicked but trying to be nice. Yes, you can. Just please don't open it. Why can't we open the case? You obviously don't take good care of them anyway. Look how dirty they are. At this point, I'm full on, how do I stop this without escalating it mode. Me. You really shouldn't clean rare coins. It devalues the coin. Entitled Aunt starts to open the case. You're obviously lying, so we won't touch it. Coins are meant to look shiny. Plus, it's just a penny. How can you devalue a cent? During this whole ordeal, Entitled Aunt is practically screaming, hence the exclamation marks. I'm almost at my breaking point until I look in horror as she takes it out of its case. Entitled Cousin. Hey, give me. Entitled Aunt hands her the coin. All I remember is failing to hold in my tears as I don't like people touching my stuff. Entitled Cousin. Ew, it's dirty. Me. Okay, yes, now please give it back. She hands it to Entitled Aunt, and Entitled Aunt flicks it at me. Clean your coins. I've never put a coin in its case faster. At this point, I thought the whole thing was over. I was sorely mistaken, as the penny isn't ruined yet, now is it? Skip a few hours when the whole thing is past us and I'm playing Rust with my friends. Apparently, Entitled Ant had come into my room and taken the coin without me knowing. Probably when I was farming for a base in the game. I usually listen to music while farming, so I wouldn't have noticed. A few minutes later, I get up to get a bottle of water to see Entitled Ant at the sink. At first, I had thought nothing of it because it looked like she was washing her hands. I headed back into my room after grabbing a bottled water because the tap water here sucks, and go back to my room. 20 minutes later, I go out into the living room where they're watching something on TV. I look at the counter with horror as my prized possession, the eagle penny I valued so much, is sitting in a vinegar bath in a glass. I fish it out of the vinegar and see that they had cleaned the coin and devalued it. What I did next, I regret, but I didn't know how to act. Me. I told you not to touch my stuff. Entitled Ant. Don't give me that. I don't let her finish her sentence before screaming back. Me. You touched my crap. I told you not to. You ruined this coin. You don't clean them. Entitled Cousin starts to cry. Yes, you do. Coins are supposed to be shiny. And how did I devalue a penny? You can't spend them. We are Canadian and we don't have the penny anymore. I couldn't argue any longer. I was crying and couldn't speak. I went to my room with the coin. I felt defeated. Around 10 minutes later, my mom comes back from their 3 to 4 hours out. They had spoiled the cousins and gotten something for Entitled Cousin. They were Hot Wheels. Entitled Ant brings the situation up first. Your son needs to learn to respect what I do for him. Mom. Oh, what did he do? He cursed at me and ran his mouth like a sailor, all because I had cleaned a dirty coin he had. My mom helped me get all of the coins I have today, especially the eagle penny. We looked for a long time to get a hold of one, and it was the only penny that I had which wasn't clean before I got it. She was livid. I don't really know what happened. What I do know is what Entitled Ant had said. Isn't your son too old to have toys and collect small things like coins? Is he a spastic? My mom kicked them out and came to check on me, and I showed her the coin. It basically lost half of its value. It wasn't until a few hours later I looked at my Hot Wheels and saw one was missing, the '64 Pontiac GTO. Now I keep my coins at my grandfather's house in the back room. Once a month, me and him go look at them and add to my collection. Now I have 60 coins, but I'll never have one just as special as my Flying Eagle penny was. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.